Dr. Andre, Dr. Steve, and other colleagues in ARWA for organizing this series, and thanking them for inviting me to give a lecture about the Assyrian Zagros cities. And also thanks a lot for you to being here with me. Now we are starting our presentation. It's about the Zagros cities. And as you all know that Zagros is a mountainous area bordering the east and northeast of Mesopotamia, always considered it as a periphery of the Mesopotamian civilization. But luckily, from the Assyrian reliefs and also other records before and after them, there are good information about the Zagros cities, as well from the archaeological evidence. And together we will visit this evidence and to see what we have it about the Assyrian reliefs and what they depicted and what are the realities on the ground from the archaeological and as well from the textual evidence. As you see from these two scenes, the first one with the mountain snow peaks, this is Piramagron that was mentioned in the Gilgamesh epic as a Nisir mountain. It's located just a few kilometers to the north of Sulaimani cities in the western Zagros. And the other one, it's a Diana plain, which was mentioned in the Shalmanisar campaigns as Diano land. It was surrounded with high mountain peaks, including the first one in front, which is mentioned in both Urartian and Assyrian records, and as Andarutu or Andaria, which is now called Handre. Among these mountains, we see a very narrow plains, in sometimes also valleys. So the landscape is totally different from what we have from the Mesopotamian plains, which are plains, rivers, and canals. Here we have mountains surrounding like a natural wall. There are mountain passes as well. In some cases, we have archaeological sites like most of our Near Eastern sites. We have tails, girds in the middle of these plains. So the people of the Zagros, they have two different types of cities. A city in the middle of these valleys or in these narrow plains, and the other one, it was like a fortification during any threat from their enemies, especially from the Assyrians. So they evacuated their city and they went up to the mountain to stay in these fortifications, in this, well, we can call it also our city, a small city with fortified on the top of these mountains, just to stay safely until the threat disappear. So in the campaigns of Shalmanisar, we have very clear evidence about this. But before we go to this, we have another interesting point, which is in the Assyrian records, especially the annals and the campaign records, we see that we have two different type of mentioning Uru. Uru or Alu in the Assyrian, it means usually use it as an indication before the city names. But in some records, we can feel that in some cases, the Uru, it's not meaning a city, actually a village or probably a small town. So for example, when Shalmanisar III, he attacked the territory of the land of Musasir, he mentioned also Zaparia as one of the strongest fortified city, and as well Musasir. These two cities were mentioned by their names, but also he says that there are other 46 cities in the surrounding. So in that case, when anonymous cities with big numbers mentioned in these records, we can feel that these are actually not cities, but villages. So the Uru being used for village and also for city in the Zagros. Probably in other places different, but what I found that in these records, it's clearly mentioned. Going back to the first cities in the Zagros or at the foot of the Zagros, we see that Urbilum, it was one of the most ancient cities at the foothills of the Zagros, mentioned in the old Sumerian records in the 26th century BC. But generally speaking about most of the cities in the Zagros, we see that the cities are several types. Most of the cities that we have it in the Zagros actually grow from the prehistoric villages to the Bronze Age Iron Age cities and towns. How can we say that? When we go to the archaeological reports, the discoveries, we see, and also during our fieldworks, we found that most of the huge tales that bear ancient cities, especially Bronze Age and Iron Age cities, there are also levels, layers, date back to the prehistoric. We have Halaf, Ubaid, and Hassuna, Samarra, ceramics everywhere. So, and this is in Sharazur Plain, correct, in Rania Plain, also in Harir Plain, and in other places in the Western Zagros exist. Also for the Urmia Basin, we have also some cases like this. There are some newly found cities which are not very much. The number are not big, but we have some cities only one layer. For example, there are cities appear in one records, and then when it has been destroyed, disappeared in the records. So in this case, we have to wait for the archaeological discoveries. And the third thing that also we have clear evidence about it, the rebuilt or restored cities on the ruins of the destroyed, burned cities. For example, Shalmaneser III, when he invaded Ashurnasirpal II, when he invaded in 881 the land of Zamua, the province of Zamua. He mentioned that Atlila was one of the ruins, like any of other tales in there, but being destroyed by one of the Babylonian kings. He restored the city, he made fortifications, he built a palace there, storage, and everything. So we have these cases as well. And more interesting, we have single palaces in the Zagros. We all know that, for example, Nushijan, Tepe Nushijan, one of the cases that the public buildings discovered, but still scholars looking for the city around in the plain and elsewhere in this district. But one of the single palaces that luckily we discovered is the Deccan site, which is it's a single palace inside the Sulaimani city, and it's a Middle Bronze Age site. And after our search for the city, we found that the city, it's far away, around 4 kilometers to the northeast of it. So in that case, we have single palaces in a strategic location near a river, on a hill, a natural hill, and then the people live it somewhere else. Or in some cases, like the Medes, probably they were semi-nomadic people. So the tent is around the site, the public building, the palace, and then they were moving according to the seasonal pastoral. So in winter they went down to the plains, and then in the summer season and hot season they went up to the mountains because they need to be with their cattle and sheep and go to with the pastoral. So in this case was continued even not during the ancient periods in Germian plain in 19th century, just 200 years ago. The same thing, the Jav tribe, they had Sherwana castle, but the rest of the people, they were living in tent around this castle on the hill. So the first depiction of the cities at the foothills of the Zagros is Qabra near the Lozab, which was depicted on the stele of Dadusha of Ashnuna when he invaded the city, and he records on his victory on a stele, and beside the inscription there is a depiction of the city walls of Qabra. And interestingly, the text describing that he is on the wall of on the top of the scene in front of the symbols of Sin and Shamash, and as well the city walls being depicted. So he described all the details of the stele. So this is the first depiction of one of the cities at the foothills of the Zagros. But if we go to the Assyrian relief, we see that the first depiction of one of the Zagric cities is the depiction of Arzashkun. Probably some of you ask me that why Arzashkun in the Zagros, because I think when we read all the Shalmaneser's records and annals, we feel that clearly Arzashkun was not located to the west of Van Lake in northern Kurdistan in Turkey or in elsewhere, but it was just to the northeast of Erbil, beyond Kiruri mountain, because after the destruction of this city, Shalmaneser clearly mentioned that he went back through the Kiruri passes in front of Erbil and then to Assyria. So in this depiction, we see that the city walls clearly being depicted. It was built on a rocky place, and also the text clearly mentioned that it was located on a high mountain place in front of two mountains. One of them Andaru, which is the same Andaru to the east of Rawandus. So the city walls are depicted, but as well we see fire, and also the Assyrian soldiers in big size, which is usually we see the Syrian propaganda for the depiction themselves, their king is a very big size comparing to their enemies. Coming back to all the other the Zagric cities, in the midst of the mountains or at the foothills of the mountains, we see that to the left, the city of Arbela, which is depicted on one of the reliefs of Ashurbanipal. We see a ditch in the bottom, and then three main walls starting, also different gates of the city, and at the top we see the Acropolis, the Temple of Ashtar, probably also the ziggurat, because the ziggurat of Ashtar mentioned during the Middle Assyrian period as well. So this is one of the surrounded circle city with different fortifications, including as well a natural barrier, which is a ditch, and that was a river. It was existed so to the last century, and now it's been covered in a canal. This is one of the cities at the foot of the Zagros. Other cities are different. So we see different landscape, different size, different fortifications, and also different parts of the city. The lower town, the upper town, the Acropolis. So in some cases, scholars say that the Assyrian reliefs are a stereotype being carved by Assyrian artists who stayed at Nineveh or Nimrud and carried these reliefs in according to their imaginations. But that's actually not true, because each one are different from the other one, and moreover, it's clearly being supported by the Assyrian records as well. So the scenes being recorded by the Assyrian artists who followed the king and also the Assyrian commanders during the military campaigns. Probably they made sketches on leather or something like this. And when they came back to Nineveh, they carried these reliefs on stone reliefs. So this is, we will come to it and in more detail. So the reliefs are showing us different types of the cities. Some of them, it has circle plans, the others are triangle plan, the fortifications, and we have different city walls, and sometimes more than one gates, or in each fortification we have different gates. This is during the attack when one of the city walls being taken, and the other one also need to be taken. The city gates again also as far as the top, the Acropolis. So usually you have one or more ditches and sometimes bridges, as we see it on these reliefs. So we have different depictions of the cities in the Zagros, starting from Uku, near Hakkari, the northern Zagros ranges. We have Musasir as well. We have Pazashi in Mania. We have Kharkhar, and also other cities in Media. For example, if we look at one of the depictions of the only Manayan city that was depicted on the relief of Khursabat in the palace of Sargon, we see a heavy attack on this city, Pazashi. We see that the city was built on a hill, a steep hill, and there is also near the pass, mountain pass, we see at the right side a huge mountain, and there is a pass planted on the mountains also visible. The Assyrian attacked the city from two sides. The first side from the main in front of the main gate of the city, when they use it, their tank-like machine attacks. These are in front of it, there was a metal and with a stick and being used by several Assyrian soldiers. I'm coming to it in detail. So we have the first fortification and also the other fortification, and we see different numbers of towers, and on each tower at top we see Manayan fighters fighting the Assyrians. The Assyrian, usually they depicted themselves as
DLshad, sorry. We stopped listening to you. DLshad? DLshad? DLshad, sorry. We cannot listen to you. I'm sorry. Um,
Can you try to mute him and unmute him?
yeah. DLshad, sorry. Can you hear me? We cannot hear you. So I stopped your sharing. We cannot hear you. I think it's his microphone. DLshad, can you hear me? Can you hear me? DLshad, can you hear me? Yes, we cannot listen to you. Like, we cannot hear you. Okay.
Now the sound is good.
Yeah, now the
Can you hear
sound
me?
is good. So, but you have
Yeah,
to
so
go back. You have to go back a little bit, like, because we
yeah,
haven't
just
been able
help
to.
me. Yeah, sorry, help me.
So
Just
go back at least one slide, I think. No,
yeah,
that's
this one
fine.
has,
Yes, yeah, no, and that
yeah,
was fine. Yeah, okay. It was
yeah,
just 1-2 minutes, okay?
yeah, okay,
Okay, so you have the stage again. Thank you.
Sorry for this
No,
problem,
it's okay.
technical problem. Yeah, so we see that the Assyrians depicted the Median city of Kharkhar and the heavy attack. They could be able to take the first fortification and also crucified several Median soldiers in front of the city to threaten the rest of the people. So they are about to take the second fortification, which we see people on towers, and they are about to surrender or negotiate. We see that the Assyrian soldiers, one of the Assyrian uh, uh, leaders, using a ladder to go to attack one of the towers and then negotiate with the Medes there. So at the top of the city, we see the Acropolis. There are tower temple-like, and there are here there are some more details. Here we can see that the tower temples at the Acropolis, also there are plants. Some scholars say that these are fire, but if the middle one is fire, the other two are really plants. So in that case, we have the first hanging garden before the one of Babylonia, which is also as well, if it was existed in reality, was made in the demand of the Median princess who was married to Nebuchadnezzar. So here we see more details. If start from the tower temples at the top of the natural hill in the middle of the city, we see that the main tower temple in the center and the other tower temples, their doors, their gates are different, and there are priestesses praying in different sites. This usually we see the Zagros praying in this way. Also, below we have buttresses and recesses, which is a Mesopotamian tradition for the temples, for the external walls of the temples as well. So below that, we see that the main fortification in the center of the city, and there are different gates, or even the architecture of the gates, the arches are different. So and below there is also another main wall of the city. So this city, Kharkhar, was built on a natural hill, and it was fortified with two main fortifications as well. The part there were the Acropolis at the top of it. We have the city of Tikraki or Sikris as well being reoccupied by Sargon, probably also being taken by Tiglath-Pileser III. Why we see that? We see a relief. It has been carved in at the entrance of the city and being kept still by the people of there. Probably this is even it's if not the case that Sargon attacked the city and occupied it and carried a relief and then reoccupied the city again in other campaigns. So here as well, we see that the Mede soldiers they are about to surrender. And the city is different from the other city. We have more or less a triangle fortification with different towers. And also as well, it has been built on a natural hill in Media. Other cities as well being built within the natural landscape. We see a natural hill and the city being built, the city fortification, the city walls, and also the gates are from different places. Also another fortification beyond, we see still the Median soldiers fighting the Assyrians, which we see as well that the Assyrian depicted themselves as a very big size comparing to the Medes and their cities. And this is also, we can notice probably that the Assyrian artist depicted the Assyrian soldiers because he was with them and much closer comparing to the Medes, far from the other side of the fighting. So we see that the Assyrian attack, usually they made these ramps to use their machines for like tank to attack, to destroy the city walls from different directions. And coming back to the double cities in the Zagros, we see that clearly from the campaign of Ashurnasirpal II on Zamua. He made 3 campaigns. In these campaigns, usually when he occupied a city, mentioned that the ruler, the king of the city, went up to a mountain, took his treasure with him, and Ashurnasirpal was obliged to left his chariot and use his horse, and then also after that climb the mountain to take the treasure from the fortification on the top of this mountain. So we searched for this in the area between the Lower Zab and Sirwan River, and luckily in Sharbajir district, just to the east of Sulaimani, we found a couple of these Lulupian fortifications, which are located on top of the mountains, and also there are other sites below in the plain. And one of the sites that's not far from the Suleiman, just to the north of it, it's a artificial site, Tel Girt. It's located just at the foot of the Pyramidron mountain, and there are potsherds from the prehistoric to, especially we have Middle Bronze Age potsherds and some Shamluware, late Shamluware, so which are also date back to 10th, 9th century BC. So this site is located in front of the Pyramidron mountain, which are also mentioned during the campaign of Ashurnasirpal II. So probably one of the Lulubian city was located there. So when he took the city, people left and went up to the mountain to the fortification that we see that being rebuilt by the ruler of Mirkhuli during the Parthian period. So also there are, when we see at the Assyrian reliefs that we see that the Assyrian depicted these cities as they were. So usually because of the landscape, the mountainous area, the people were obliged to build their cities in a high place for 2 points. One of them to be far away from the threat of floods, not only from the raining, but also during the spring when the snow melting from the mountain. So again, another flood happening. This is also not good for their cities. And another point also for protection from during the siege and enemy attacks, which as we see during the Assyrian period. And coming back to Musasir, the city of Musasir, which is one of the well depicted on the Assyrian reliefs, especially during the reign of Sargon when he plundered the city. He depicted 3 main parts of the city. This city was different a little bit from the other Zagrosian cities because we have at the right side the palace tower-like, the palace of Urzana, the ruler of the city. And in the middle, in the center, we have the temple of Khaldi. And also to the left, we have a building, and we see 2 Assyrian scribes with one of the vizier of Sargon, recording the plundered objects and also the deported people. So most of the scholars, I mean, in the last century, usually they call it this building when the 2 scribes and also the Assyrian vizier sitting, call it as a building with 4 towers. But actually, this is the city, the houses of the city. And we see that the city of Musasir, it has totally different plan because of the landscape. So they built the palace, the fortification of the ruler, Urzana, at the top of the mountain. And then in the valley, they built a temple, but because they were afraid from the floods, so they built the temple on a flat ramp. And then also the city, it's located beyond a hill, a natural hill, a little bit far from the temple. We see here the hill, the natural hill, and then it has a small fortification, and then the houses of the city. Each house, it has a main door in the center and 3 windows there. So when we come to reality, we see that we have still evidence from the villages in the Zagros supporting this idea. As some of you know that I started a long-term field work with the Directorate of Soran of Antiquities in the area to the northeast of Erbil, in the area of Ravandus and Bradost Mountain, which is located in the triangle border between Iraqi, Iranian, and Turkish political border at the moment. So this area, which was called during the Iron Age as the land of Musasir. And when I searched to this depiction, I realized this is not a 4-level tower, but really this is the city of Musasir, the houses of the city of Musasir. Why? Because just beyond this mountain, when the Mujassir village and the ruins of the city of Musasir exist, we have this village. This is a photo from 1971, taken by the teacher of this village, Mr. Jalal Majid. It was during the Nowruz Kurdish New Year, when all the people of the village came to the roofs, men, women, and children, all are in Kurdish dresses, celebrating, coming to watch the making fire of Nowruz on one of the hills in front of the village. So we see here there is no courtyard. Each house using the roof of the below house as their courtyard for their daily activities, for festivities, everything as you see here. So these are really the same thing that was for the city of Musasir, when also Sargon call it Urzana, the ruler of Musasir, as a mountain dweller, because also we see on this seal, cylinder seal of Urzana, the ruler of Musasir, he named himself as the ruler of the city of Raven. The bird raven usually in the Zagros built their houses on rocks. So these cities built on the the Rocky Mountains, just like this in the past. So these are the details from these reliefs, and not only in this place of the Zagros, but in the Hauraman area, we see that still the villages in the same tradition, and more interestingly, that we have 3 windows, window in the center, the same tradition of the facade of the houses being kept for almost 3 millennia. And if we come back to the ruins of the city of Musasir, we see that this is the Topzawa Valley, when the Topzawa stele of Rusa, the Urartian king, discovered. And it was just erected on the main road that was led just a few kilometers to the west of this place, when the ruins of the city of Musasir exist in Sidakan. And this place is the place when we found the column bases, which we think for a public, it was related to a public building, and this public building is very probably the same temple of Musasir. So the temple was here in this valley. This is when we see the pillow trees. These are the Topzawa River, went through just to the west of this city. And then here the temple. At the top of this mountain, we have the palace, the Fort Qala Mujassar. And beyond this hill, we have the city of Musasir, the ruins. So when we visited several times the village, we found that people, when they are digging the basis for their to build a house, or during cultivation, they found the column bases, which are typically Urartian column bases, and there are many column bases in this village. So these are very comparable to the temples that was discovered in to the west and north of Lake Van, which are typically Urartian temples. And these are, we discovered almost 17 column bases there. So if we come back to this plan, we see that the Qala Mujassar here, the castle, and the village there when the ruins of the temples exist, and also the city was beyond of this mountain. Also in all Sidikan village, many Urartian potsherds being discovered in the 70s by Boymer. So these are the landscape that affected the plan of the city. And as we see here that there are hills, the mountains, and very little a very narrow plain and valley for cultivation. So the people were built the city and the castle, the fortification just at the hill, beside the hill, because they used this area for their orchards, for cultivation, as well for, they were afraid from the floods of winter and spring season. So these are reasons why the people of the Zagros built their cities. So when we search for Musasir, we can nothing about a natural tale like the rest of the other Near Eastern sites like this. But when we come to the Diana plain, because the plain is bigger and also wider, so there was a place for building an ancient city. Still, we don't know which one, but that during the excavations by several teams, they found Iron Age and also Bronze Age as well. Chalcolithic remains here, but still they are looking to find a public building, text, something like this, to identify the city. So coming back to Musasir, as here we see that when they expanded the route to the village of Mujesser, which we think that this is the folk etymology of Musasir, they found a tomb here, and here the skeleton, and also within the tomb they found a torso. Unfortunately, it was broken. It's a torso of a ruler or a warrior with a dagger, and also a short skirt to his knee, but unfortunately the upper part is missing. And still we have planned to dig in this place to make C14 dating for the ruins of the skeleton there, as well to expand this digging to look for any possibility to find the rest, the other parts of the statue or anything related to this warrior. So coming back to other cities, one of the things that the Assyrian did is the policy of renaming the Zagros cities. The Assyrians renamed more than 10 cities, starting from Atlila. It was called Atlila by the Lulubi people, but Ashurnasirpal II renamed it to Dur Ashur. And then Aragdi, as well in the capital of Zamua, renamed it to Tukulti Ashur Asbat. Nishtun to the northeast of Erbil, renamed it to Ashurnasirpal, and the rest. So in my book, I made a list for all these renamed cities. Also their previous names, their current names in the Assyrian records as well, their province, and the details of this. And the last thing which I want to discuss it as well with you, also to learn from you as well, that the population of these Greek cities, we are pretty sure that any city, the population is different from the other one, and also the population of the people in the plains are different from the population of the mountainous area. Usually, I mean, the plains, the people, the population are in these cities and villages are much more than the population in the mountainous area. But for instance, we have a good record for this. So one of the lists that I made as well is the list of the deportees from the Zagros and also to the Zagros. And these are including numbers. For example, Ashur Belkala mentioned that he deported 3,000 captives from Habhu. And one of the interesting things that Sargon, when he plundered the city of Musasir, he mentioned that he accounted 6,120 people, in addition to the family of Urzana, the ruler of Musasir. He mentioned the Urzana, his wife, and his children as well. So the people of this city was more than 6,000 people at that time. So, and if we compare it to the village of Rus, just in the last half century, we see that this village, it was one of the crowded villages in this place because it was located on the caravan routes between from the Urmia basin to the valleys of and the plains of Erbil and Mesopotamia to late antiquities. So these are a general overview of the cities of the Zagros, and I'm eager to hear your comments and also any additional information from you. Thanks a lot.